Thank you, everybody. Welcome to today's full council meeting, and welcome to members of the public who are attending in the public gallery, those in the conference hall, and those watching this meeting via our YouTube channel. For those in the building, I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure. Please leave the chamber by the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral. As with any council meeting, please treat each other with due courtesy, tolerance and respect. Agenda item number 2, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillors Alexander, Breckles, Hucker, King, Thomas and Wilcock. Are there any other apologies? No. Okay, move on to agenda item number 3, declarations of interest. Please can I ask whether any councillors have any interest to declare regarding items on today's agenda? Councillor Rippington.
Yeah, Lord Mayor, just with respect to the Ombudsman item on the agenda, I have some personal interactions with the council at the moment. I just thought I would declare them in relation to what I'm going to be saying later.
Lovely, thank you very much. We'll certainly note them. Agenda item number 4, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous meeting of full council held on the 9th of September 2025 be agreed as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
I rise to second and reserve my remarks.
Thank you, Councillor Malik. Agenda item number 5, Lord Mayor's business. I'd like to ask Councillor Christine Townsend to say a few words about our corporate parenting responsibilities and to share a short promotional video for foster carer recruitment. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you very much. So once again, we are going to be watching the updated annual recruitment video for foster carers. It's part of a national campaign, and in Bristol we are also looking to support and recruit more foster carers, because we know that children do better when they're in families, and it also enables our children to stay as close as possible to their the city where they were living. I speak as an individual, but I speak for all of us, because this is a shared responsibility. Every elected member in this chamber, every employed council officer has a specific and very real interest and responsibility towards this group of children. So I hope you enjoy the film. Thank you.
So Tom, I wanted to ask, how's everything going?
On your marks, set.
Sorry, love, done.
These are from lost property. Stick them on.
Yeah, you know, it's been different. I was tired.
And I need you to make a delivery for us, okay?
Yeah, oi, where you going? Oi, where you going?
I suppose I'd felt like giving in.
So, do you know what foster care is?
Just them knowing that you're around and that they can go to you if they want to.
It's not what I expected.
Is that Poppy coming in?
Yeah, can you get some biscuits?
In what way?
I thought they'd let me down like everybody else. You don't know how it's going to go.
I've been here a while now. It's really okay.
I didn't know who they were or why they would care. About me. At first I just wanted to run.
Just kicked my foot and I went like
all the time.
Tom, it's all right.
I'll clear it up.
And now, do you still want to run?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
wow, look what you did.
Next time, I'm gonna win.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. In other business, City Hall is hosting an Islamophobia Awareness Month exhibition until tomorrow, because it's important for our Muslim communities to feel seen and respected in this building, city and country. We encourage all members to look at the exhibition in the foyer, and our thanks goes to Councillor Malik for providing it for us. As you know, this Sunday will be Remembrance Sunday, and next Tuesday is Armistice Day, where we remember the service and sacrifice of all those who have defended our freedoms and protected our way of life. Council also notes the recent terrible massacre committed in Darfur and Sudan, and our sympathies are with the victims and the Bristol Sudanese community. I ask full Council to stand to observe a 2-minute silence. Thank you, everybody. So agenda item number 6 is public forum. 30 minutes will be allowed for this item, which is split into 15 minutes for petitions and statements and 15 minutes for questions. Details of the petition statements and questions received have been published on our website. I'll go through the list, calling on those who have indicated they plan to attend the meeting and ensure that a variety of topics are covered. Speakers are asked to pay attention to the traffic lights on the dais and to start to wrap up when the lights turn amber. I would like to take a moment to remind everyone of the need to be respectful and courteous throughout the meeting today. It's important that the public and members are able to engage in the democratic meetings and share their views about a range of issues. However, we must endeavour to do this in a way that doesn't cause offence to others. Please do consider this when making your contributions at today's meeting. There were no public forum petitions received for this meeting. There were a total of 42 public statements received. 30 members of the public indicated that they plan to attend and speak to their statements. They're displayed on the screen, and we'll run through those statements in order. I'll invite each person to speak for 1 minute. Please summarise your statements and bear in mind that they were published for councillors and the public to read in advance of this meeting. So the first one we have is public statement number 4 from Samir Moose, concerns regarding East Bristol Liverpool neighbourhood consultation. You have a minute if you're here. No? Okay. Public statement number 7, Wendy Stevenson, the Council's inclusive language excluding women. Is Wendy here? Yeah. Lovely. Have a minute, please, Wendy.
Thank you. The Council has strongly advised that the Equalities and Human Rights Commission should use more inclusive language, such as people with ovaries, when we all know that people with ovaries are women. The Council also states that individuals may not identify with the word maternity and prefer paternity as it is gender neutral. The root of the word maternity is mother and the root of the word paternity is father. Paternity is most certainly not gender neutral. How is our council getting this so wrong? Is it poor proofreading, ignorance, Or is it the chilling effect of the 2022 trans inclusion motion, whereby an officer feels unable to question such a ridiculous statement for fear of being labelled transphobic? People with ovaries are women, people who give birth are women, people who need maternity services are women. Why is Bristol City Council so keen on erasing women?
Public statement number 12 from Elaine Hutton, the Council's trans inclusion policies. Elaine here. Thank you. You have 1 minute.
Last month, violent trans activists inflicted serious damage on a conference centre in Brighton where women were meeting. The local Green MP blamed the women attending the conference for provoking the men and suggested that the local council should not have let Paul out to these women.
Point of order, I'm sorry, but calling trans women men is highly transphobic and I think it should be called out.
Can I have some extra time then, since you've interrupted
If you just continue, but just bear in mind there might be some people who find it offensive. Please continue.
I find it offensive that we are told that men can be women.
If you want to continue, the time's running. Thank you.
This happened shortly after trans activists marched through Bristol, carrying a banner calling for trans women to be armed. An article in 24/7 showed how this was part of a pattern of violent trans activism in Bristol. The Brighton MP's words resembles our own Green Council's
Lord Mayor, I've really got to. This is absolutely unacceptable language to use around trans people, painting them as
women
violent.
asserting their sex-based rights. Bristol City Council's unlawful trans inclusion policy sets the tone for councillors' behaviour and has enabled an environment where women's rights are not protected. Now that we have the Supreme Court judgment, when is the council?
Your time's up. Please stop talking. Thank you very much. Public statement 15 from Melissa Topping on behalf of the East Bristol Open Roads campaign group. Melissa, are you here? No? Okay. Public statement 18 from Terry Braemar, I think. Why plan to destroy the healthy working of good neighbourhood? Is Terry here? Lovely. Have a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a passionate plea. Little fact in it, but it's emotional. I live with anxiety and depression. I just about manage, but I know many who don't and can't. And since hearing about this livable neighbourhood scheme, I find myself heading into a mental and emotional tailspin, and I know I'm not alone. There are many of us feeling deeply worried and utterly bewildered as to why you're imposing restrictions and divisions we didn't ask for that will cause huge problems. This needs to be a plan for all of us, not just those who are fit and able enough to walk and cycle. And if you cared, you'd listen to our concerns and our proposals. Southville works really well.
20 seconds.
And I'm sure that we can find ways to make it better. Many of us rely on our cars. Please don't force us into longer journeys and traffic jams. Please just stop. Listen to our concerns and proposals, because this is wrong. And as it stands, it's inhumane. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. Public statement 20 from Helen Hughes, respect from councillors for members of the public. Is Helen here? Yep.
Yes, I'm right here.
You have a minute.
Thank you. So I listed 3 things in my written statement, which happened at the Transport and Connectivity Committee on the 23rd of November, where members of the public were treated with what I would say was a lack of respect, including sniggering like schoolboys, mispronouncing someone's name, someone who knew who that was and knew how to pronounce it, I presume, possibly. I mean, maybe you don't. For someone was scrolling through their smartphone, as has been noted by many people at that meeting during the presentation of a petition. I just want to basically, in the time I've got left, say that councillors, you are in no way morally, because also Ed Plowden, you asked for respect from members of the public. The thing is, we all need respect.
20 seconds left.
Yes, sure. You're in no way morally, ethically, intellectually, or in any other manner superior to anyone else. You've just chosen to stand for election and been elected because your party was popular at the time. If you cannot command the respect of the public, you cannot yourselves be respected, and I think you need to learn that. It's your duty to earn our
Thank you.
respect
Your minute's
and not
up.
the other
Thank
way
you.
around. Thank you.
Thank you. Public statement 27 from Meg Smith. Is Meg? Lovely. You have a minute.
Thank you. Wherever you walk in Southville, before long you'll come across a poster in a window saying, "Stop the roadworks, keep Southville connected, and keep our streets open." You may even see the council's lamppost banners with AI images on them of empty streets with a no zones poster stating that Southfield's already a livable neighbourhood. And if you venture into the shop of a private trader, you'll likely hear of the massive sentiments of injustice that's been launched upon them, with the threat of diminished customers and an obvious war on cars. And no, the promise of a parklet outside their shop
20 seconds.
does not entice them for 1 minute. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes from now that the consultations are over and what the councils will do. Many will be looking at the WECA funding, which will only be for parklets, bike hangers, and blocks of the roads with planters.
Lovely, your time's up now. Thank you very much for your statement. We must be moving on. Thank you. So public statement 31 from Evie Loisoy. Are you here, Evie? Yep, you have 1 minute.
Like many parents, I work full-time while juggling the chaos of family life. We walk and cycle whenever we can, but sometimes we need a car. The SBLN will not stop essential car journeys. What it will do is push traffic onto North Street and Coronation Road, making trips longer, congestion worse, and air quality poorer for everyone who lives, works, and walks there. Expecting people to swap their cars for bikes is unrealistic when safety is the main barrier, and the SBLN does nothing to address cyclist safety on connected roads. In fact, these roads will become busier, making cycling, particularly for parents with children, even less appealing. The vast majority of non-connector roads in Southall are already low traffic, and residents already walk
20
and cycle
seconds left.
if they can. The SBLN won't provide people with sustainable transport options on connector roads, where it is most needed and would have the biggest impact on travel behaviour.
Thank you. Public statement 33 from Pauline Glynn. Is Pauline here? No? Yes? Lovely. You have 1 minute.
My statement set out how the proposals in their current form would personally affect me and other disabled people, though in part my comments can be applied to able-bodied people. I now have a concrete example of the detriment I and others will suffer. This morning I visited my dentist on Coronation Road. I always take the shortest route to the surgery. Parking is always available on Bewley Road or at the end of Raleigh Road. Mimicking one of the zoning proposals, this morning that end was blocked off due to roadworks and space on Raleigh Road was limited, resulting in a longer walk to the surgery, leaving me more short of breath and in greater pain than usual. That's the reality. Those of us
20 seconds left.
about the proposals do so out of concern for our community. We're not against the change, but it must be properly considered, realistic and proportionate to the needs of the community you were elected to serve. We're willing to work with you in an honest and cooperative way. Please work with us and properly listen to us. Stop accusing us of undemocratic behaviour.
Thank you. Your time's up now. Thank you very much for your statements. We'll be moving on. Public statement 39 from Mr. Joshi. Lovely. You have 1 minute, sir.
You see, whenever there's a proposal that comes forth from central government or local council, if that proposal carries with it universal weight of support from citizens, then that proposal is almost certainly likely to have met two fundamental principles. Now, spoiler alert, you know these low traffic neighborhoods that are being promulgated and proposed throughout Bristol, they don't meet either of these two principles. The first principle, freedom, in that no proposal should deny or infringe upon the liberties of its citizens.
20 seconds left.
Yeah. And second principle, principle of truth, in that the proposal is self-evident in that it's teeming with common sense. So it's hard to debate. Now, the thing is, when there's a marked absence of freedom and truth, there's inevitably an erosion of trust. An erosion of trust.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up now. Okay.
I request
Thank you.
To pull up your socks. Thank you.
Public statement 41 from Caroline Dunn. Is Caroline here? Lovely. You have 1 minute, Caroline.
Yes, I'm sorry. As usual, I'll be breathless, and I would like you to make some additional adjustments for this. I will be brief. However, Like my statements, I think it's better to be short. I'm assuming everyone's read it. Essentially, I am fed up with coming here and stating the obvious. It seems to me I shouldn't need to do this, but I find that repetitively I'm coming here and stating the obvious. This time, I'm afraid the obvious is the animals do appear to have taken over the farm. Now, I think that there is a solution to this, because technically we still live in a democratic society, and technically we are still entitled to vote. So can I please request full council to consider seriously, before you start closing down access to such large parts of Bristol, to disabled people, to elderly people, but also to a lot of other people who desperately need access, like tradespeople. Could you please consider holding this over until we can have a democratic election of all our councillors again and have the new...
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you. Public Statement 42 from David Redgewell. Is David here? Lovely.
So I'm going to be here again. You can hear the same record. The Mayor of the West of England, Helen Goodwin, requires a transport levy from this council. To pay the bus drivers, we just paid the wages. We have to bring the level up between 2%. We need to go up towards 6% to pay staff costs, cost of new buses, cost of running fuel, and cost of providing the services. I am very grateful to Ed Plowden and to Tim Rippington for the work they did in getting more buses running across the city region. But some of those contracts will run out on the 31st of March. If we don't, well, some of the WECA ones, Ed, yeah, not necessarily ones you put in place, but the WECA ones, which fix in with those, will finish on the 31st of March.
20 seconds left.
We need to find a solution with the 4 unitary authorities, including North Somerset, to fund the services with the bus operator grant from central government, which we're expecting in the budget. This is serious. We could see a lot of buses off the road on the 31st of March unless we get a plan with the 4 UAs. So I'm speaking to you all. Please make sure we fund the bus network.
Thank you. Thank you for your statement, sir. Thank you. So now we'll move on to public questions received. The questions received and written responses from the relevant committee chair have been published on the website. A list is shared on the screen now. 33 questions were received from members of the public. 15 of those have indicated they wish to attend. We'll try to cover as many questions and topics as possible in the 15 minutes available. It may not be possible for everyone to speak, so we ask for your patience as we run through the questions in order. When I call on you, your question will be displayed on the screen. You're invited to ask a maximum of 2 supplementary questions based on the written responses. The leader or relevant chair will reply verbally to your supplementary questions. So, public question number 2 from Alex Flinder about Bristol flags to Councillor Dyer. Are you here? No? Okay. Public question number 5 from Stephen McNamara regarding the Constitution to Councillor Dyer. Stephen here? Lovely. You have 2 supplementary questions. If we could just get straight to the questions because we have a lot to get through, that would be much appreciated.
Firstly, Lord Mayor, I'd like to apologise for not standing. I have a mild disability, so do forgive me. In respect to the first question, would Councillor Dyer please confirm, therefore, that the motion passed in July 2022, the famous Trans Women and Women motion, is not binding and has no legal effect? A yes/no answer would be grateful.
I can give a yes or no answer to a question that doesn't have a yes or no response. I think as the response to the question made clear, motions passed by full council are not legally binding.
Do you have another supplementary?
Yes. I noticed that you regard gender-critical views as something to be tolerated. Given that the vast majority of the people are sex realists, don't you think it would be better to say they should be respected and well regarded?
I think it is a duty of all of us to treat each other with respect and be aware of the impact of our words on other people.
Thank you. Quiet, please. Public question number 6 from Andy Cranham on flags on lampposts. Is Andy here? No? Okay, we'll move on to public question number 7 from Phoebe Bedell. Respect women's opinions to Councillor Dyer. You have 2 supplementaries. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. It's Phoebe Bedell. Can I go?
Yes, you have two supplementaries to Councillor Dyer.
Yes, in the interest of democracy, inclusion of marginalised voices, diversity of thought, I asked you whether councillors could tolerate women talking about their sex realist concerns. I would like to know which councillors here will positively tolerate listening to women with respect who express sex realist views and who may quote the Supreme Court ruling that trans women are biological men and trans men are biological women.
Thank you.
I would like to have a show of hands as to
Well,
who finds that offensive.
we're not having a show of hands, I'm afraid. It's to Councillor Dyer. Your question's to Councillor Dyer. We're not doing a show of hands, okay?
Okay. The question was for me. I am not going, if you want to ask questions of the councillors, you can email all the councillors. The emails are on the website, they're available. To reinforce what I've said earlier, I am prepared to listen to any statements and any comments, but I also respect the right of those who feel that those statements are offensive and therefore may want to take actions of their own. This is a democracy. You have the right to come here and make statements. Councillors have the right to decide whether those statements are offensive to them and how they want to respond.
Do you have another supplementary question for Councillor Dyer?
Yes, Councillor Dyer. Do you approve or disapprove of the intimidating placards that are being held by the councillors on this side? Do you approve or disapprove of it? I find it rather intimidating and offensive that a democratically elected councillor cannot.
Okay, let's let Councillor Dyer answer your question, shall we? Councillor Dyer?
I do not find the LGBTIQ+ flag offensive.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to public question 10 from Samira Muse on the East Bristol Liverpool neighbourhood. To Councillor Plowden, are you here? No? Oh, no, she wasn't here, was she? Public question number 11 from Paul Wheeler, budget consultation to Councillor Dyer. Is Paul here? No. Public question 14 from Melissa Topping, but Melissa's not here either, is she? No. Okay. Public question number 20 from Caroline Dunn, East Bristol Liverpool neighbourhood, to Councillor Plowden. Caroline, you have two supplementary questions to Councillor Plowden.
Can I point out that I didn't discuss just the EBLN? And my first supplementary question is, I'm not at all happy with being fobbed off yet again, because I brought this up before about my suggestion for a gardener's market. We desperately need ideas and we need things and actions that will help bring footfall into Bristol, that will promote our economy, that will help our economy, because currently it is being stifled. And I feel that the answer is not satisfactory. My first supplementary question is, when is the relevant team going to actually start working on giving us a gardener's market?
Councillor Plowden.
It's not a transport question.
I'll answer as Chair of Economy and Skills,
Thank you.
my Lord Mayor, if that's all right. It's the management of Millennium Square lies with we the curious. So any activity in that, as I understand it, any activity in that area will have to be done under their aegis. I am happy to support any, or at least entertain any suggestion to encourage footfall into the market, into the city, whether that be through a gardener's market or any other activity, as long as it can be facilitated within the resources that are available to the council, and or with the permission and support of the relevant landowners.
Do you have another supplementary question, Caroline?
Yes, I do. In connection with my EBLN question, I note that what was very clearly personal information from the email was published in Bristol City Council Public Forum on the website. Now, luckily, I personally tell everyone about having seasonal affective disorder and how it affects me as a means of breaking down the stigma that exists about disabled people. It is a very, very disabling and debilitating condition, lifelong condition to have. However, I feel that this was not a compassionate thing to do and was somehow completely wrong to do it without my permission. However, I do know that Chair Plowden thinks he knows what I'm going to say before I say it. So I would like to ask him, is he also aware that I have similarly contacted confidentially a number of people about his own behaviours and verbalisations, as I feel they show very worrying psychiatric symptoms? Thank you.
Councillor Plowden.
Thank you for your follow-up question, Caroline. I try and treat everyone with respect. I try and listen to everyone. Well, I don't really know what you're referring to, and I don't really know how to answer. I mean, I think I'm very keen that you can come, you can participate in democracy. I've made a lot of allowances for you in the Transport Committee, giving you extra time, and I do my very best to uphold the Nolan principles of public life. And I'm sorry that somehow your engagement with the portal for submitting questions and statements doesn't seem to be working very well, because we have failed to log those properly. And I'm sorry that the way you've submitted things today to today's meeting contains information that you didn't want made public, but it's been simply copied and pasted from the questions and statements you submitted online. So,
can we just let Councillor Plowden to reply? He's replied to your question now. You've had you two supplementary, so we'll be moving on. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline, please stop talking. Caroline, thank you. You come to these meetings often, you know how they work. Please respect the rules. Public question 21, Amber Eastman on the South Bristol livable neighbourhood. Is Amber here? Lovely. You have two supplementary questions for Councillor Plowden.
So, a livable neighbourhood for who exactly? I'd like the council to explain the livable neighbourhood concept to those living on the roads that under the new LTN scheme will receive even more traffic than before. If traffic is blocked from freely moving somewhere, it will simply push traffic to become gridlock somewhere else. My question for the council is to explain the logic behind the LTN neighbourhood scheme, which pertains to provide cleaner air for residents, but conversely, under this cleaner air scheme, it will most significantly increase traffic pollution to designated areas where people live. So who is this scheme for? It's not for everyone.
Councillor Plowden.
Thank you for your question. And, there's a lot. This scheme is for everyone, and it's also for the future residents of South Bristol. Southfield Ward is predicted to have a growth of 40% in the population. Again and again, we look at the feedback from the public, and we see that traffic and transport is one of the #1 problems in Bristol. And I think pretty much everyone agrees that do nothing is not an option. In the evidence from other low traffic neighbourhoods is that it's not a fixed effect. It's not just a question simply of squeezing the balloon and seeing it come elsewhere. It's a question of actually letting the air out of the balloon and enabling the people who consistently tell us, 50% of the population consistently tell us they would like to cycle more and they would like to walk more and they would like to drive less, but they feel that there is no other option for them to do so. That's proper, demographically weighted surveys that show this again and again and again. So what we're trying to do is make it safer for people who want to make those choices to do so, rather than just chase the traffic around.
Do you have a
I'd like to
another
see the
supplementary?
data on that, because we all walk, well, not we all, but a lot of us walk and bike and take public transport and only use cars when we have to.
So every couple of years, a charity called Sustrans has published something called the Walk, Wheel and Cycle Index. It was previously called the Bike Life Report, and that consistently shows across something like 20 cities across the UK that there is a huge untapped demand for walking and cycling and that more people would like to do it. And we believe, and this has been the case in other cities where low traffic neighbourhoods or livable neighbours have been put in, that actually it reduces the traffic within the livable neighbourhood but also on the boundary roads. And that means that it's more effective and the transport flows flows better for those that are dependent on their cars. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, so we'll go to public question 27 from Ian Woodward, Safety in Public Parks. Is Ian here? Thank you, Ian. As we're running quite low on time, could you just get straight to the supplementary questions, please? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. In terms of the safety in parks, I can't imagine anyone standing up and saying that that is not a good idea, and you're going to debate it later today. However, we have here Councillor Stephen Williams, Chair of Public Health, who did nothing to help with the public excrement on the Downs. It was only once this council received a litter abatement order pre-action notice that anyone went even to look. And the answer I've received on the question here about it needs people to report it and say where it is.
Sorry, can we just get to the question,
rubbish,
please?
Because you had, from the day one, Councillor Williams, from day one, you had an exact location, and I came to you and asked you to make sure that something was done, and you promised me nothing was done until a pre-action letter
Could we
was
get
sent.
to your supplementary, please? No. Councillor Williams, you wish to respond?
I'll try to, Lord Mayor. I mean, often councillors, all of us, whatever party, we wouldn't get accused of doing nothing and not responding. And of course, that isn't necessarily true, because what you don't see is what goes on behind the scenes when you're trying to sort out a situation. Mr Woodward, Lord Mayor, came to the Health and Wellbeing Board, asked questions about human waste in particular on the Downs. I said at that time I would ask officers and the Director of Public Health to look into this, and she did. And that's why action has been taken. It took quite a long time for our neighbourhood enforcement team officers to find out exactly where the human waste was being deposited, and moreover to try and trace where it was coming from, which was the information that obviously we were lacking. And as you can see from the written answer, site clearance was undertaken last week. More vehicles have had enforcement action taken away from them and have been towed away, and others have been served notices. As Councillor Parsons and I have answered questions about this and spoken about this many times, a huge amount of work has gone on behind the scenes trying to sort out this situation. We know it's distressing for residents, both around the Downs and in many other locations around the city. It's also a difficult situation for the people who are living in the vehicles. And what we've had to do is craft a policy that, one, says living at the curbside is not a sustainable way going forward. That's a big change we made from the previous administration. What we're now at the stage of, and the report will go to Councillor Parsons' committee on the 19th of December, is how we're going to implement that philosophy of offering people an alternative location, having engagement with them so that more people can move from the highway, from around parks, from around the Downs, have a better location to live for themselves and deal with the legitimate concerns in many cases from members of the public as well. This was never going to be easy, but it is not fair to say that we don't care and we haven't done anything about it, because that is not the truth.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'm afraid we've run out of time for public forum now, so that concludes public forum and questions received. I'd like to inform members of the public that the adjournment for today's meeting is expected at 7:30. I invite you to remain if you would like to hear the other items on today's agenda. If not, please leave as quickly as possible and quietly as possible. Agenda item number 7, petitions notified by councillors. There has been one councillor petition received for this meeting. Councillors are invited to speak for 1 minute. Councillor Kent, would you like to present your petition?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The petition signed by 509 people. We call upon Bristol City Council not to close any primary schools in the Hengrove and Whitchurch Park ward. 1,250 homes have already been built in our area, and in the last several years, we're up to another 2,500 more still to be built. We believe that Bristol City Council has failed to fully take into account the demand from this new development. Hengrove and Whitchurch Park will need all of its 6 primary schools to meet future demand. We oppose the proposal to close up to 2 schools in our area in 2027 as part of the school organisation strategy consultation, and call on Bristol City Council to rule this out. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. That concludes agenda item number 7. So agenda item number 8, petition debate on Save Our Libraries. This report is for noting, and I'd like to call on Councillor Tom Renard to present the report as the petition organiser. Councillor Renard, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And firstly, my thanks to the almost 5,000 people that have signed this petition, showing the strength of feeling that there is on this topic. Libraries matter. They are a place of sanctuary, a warm space for support, a base where communities can come together. Corridors of knowledge where we can learn about our past, locally, nationally, or even across the world. Settings where we can reconnect with our history, reminding ourselves of why we do what we do. A backdrop where we can learn that hate and division will never win. Where current and future generations can find hope that we are not doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. A hub of many stories of those that stood up to be counted and fought for what they believed in, even when all seemed lost. When I was a young boy, I regularly visited the local library with my mum. I always looked forward to it, thinking about which books I may be able to borrow, exploring the wonders that lay within the pages of carefully crafted ideas. I'm forever grateful to authors who have been so generous in allowing others to be part of the worlds that they have created. And I also welcome the government's commitment to ensure that every primary school in England will have a library by 2029, aiming to enhance children's literacy and access to reading materials. That opportunity in school is vital. Reading makes a big impression on you. Libraries are spaces we should fiercely guard, no less vociferously than Smorg and his pile of gold in the lonely mountain of Erebor. We should also ensure, though, that they don't become rarely visited locations by a small number of brave adventurers, leaving the many gems to only be experienced by one greedy dragon. The impact of 14 years of devastating Tory austerity on public services across the United Kingdom has much to answer for. Figures in 2019 put the figure at almost 800 library closures since the Conservative Liberal Democrats austerity project. Libraries shut across the country as part of a rationalisation of public services that has wrought destruction on communities everywhere, contributing to the division that society faces today. As our services have disintegrated, people look for someone to blame for changes, turning to the populists who offer easy answers with no grasp on the realities facing the everyday lives of those who are struggling to get by. Now, I don't begrudge the difficult decisions local leaders have had to take. As far back as 2017, when Labour was staring down the barrel of a major financial deficit resulting from the previous financial administration, there were no easy answers. And in Bristol, Labour did all it could to make ends meet. At the point we left office in May 2024, we delivered 8 balanced budgets, and we still had 27 libraries in the city, having kept them all open. A proud achievement and not one that had been easy to accomplish. There were no easy decisions. The trade-off for keeping them all open was reducing some libraries' operating hours. However, by retaining the service and the buildings they operated from, it means we can increase the opening hours when financial circumstances allow it. We know that once a building is gone, it is gone for good. Only by a clear commitment to keep all libraries open will the space be created to have the conversation on building a service that is fit for the future. The Council's plan to close libraries is all the more flawed, considering the Labour government is injecting money back into local government. In Bristol, the Council saw an increase of 27 million for 25-26 above what it anticipated. The Green Liberal Democrat administration that was looking to take out over £2 million of the library budget in January could have seen up to 19 libraries close. They can thank the government for bailing them out of that one. Closing libraries would be a mistake, and one that cannot be undone. You put forward proposals to close up to 19 libraries. You said in budget meetings that you didn't think there was a way to balance the budget without cutting the library service. You voted down an amendment to commit to keeping all the libraries open. You put out a press release saying you're maintaining the budget, a real terms cut, without saying you keep them all open. You said you wanted to address the current opening hours, but that is impossible to do on the same budget without cutting the service elsewhere. There's a lot of opportunities to rule out closures that you have not decided to take. Considering there's a website dedicated to monitoring all of the Green Party's broken promises, you can forgive me for being sceptical about your intentions on this. This refusal to rule out closures is worrying staff. There's an easy way to end that. Rule out closures. The Liberal Democrats have just presented a petition calling on the council to rule out school closures in his ward, despite their future being very uncertain and any decisions being a long time away. You could also put teaching staff's mind at ease by committing to keep them open too. So I ask today, just say that you'll keep them all open. This issue's not going away until you commit to that. Let's not deny access to those who inherit the consequences of the easy decision, ensuring that, like I was able to do with my mum, we protect the spaces that will serve to be a treasure chest of possibilities for the many who need to know that a better tomorrow can happen. For my daughters and communities across our city, we must keep that possibility alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Renard. I'd like to call on Councillor Ed Fraser to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I would like to also thank everyone who signed this petition. I agree with Councillor Renard that it is no surprise to see the strength of feeling, and I know that because, as he does, I have my own story about what my local library meant to me when I grew up, so please indulge me. So members here will know that I'm autistic, and like many autistic kids, for the first few years of my life, I was non-verbal. I didn't speak. And my parents were fortunate enough to be able to access speech therapy support, and reading with my mum and my older brother at our local library became a really important part of my own speech development. And being in that quieter, more controlled environment meant I could read words aloud from books more confidently, but I could also communicate with other young children non-verbally through play, in a much calmer space than I could in my school. And I share this not to be pithy or to create some kind of sob story, but because sometimes people think that when they hear statements like your local libraries are under threat, they assume it's because the politicians don't understand what difference libraries make in people's lives. But we do know. Pretty much everyone in this room has benefited from the library as a child, a parent, a student, a volunteer, a researcher, or maybe when they needed help and didn't know where else to turn to. So to all the residents who have signed this petition, or seen things on social media, or through their letterbox saying that we're threatening to cut your library, I want to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you've been made to feel anxious about your local libraries by Labour's cynical campaign. I am sorry that Bristol Labour now have your email addresses, which you had to supply to sign the petition, which they will now use to feed you more scary nonsense about libraries and other local services. And I am particularly sorry that they carried on delivering leaflets with falsehoods about Bristol's libraries printed on them, even after, at last full council, we explicitly confirmed in this chamber that Bristol's library's budget was being protected to the penny. Because we won't forget when they were in power, when their leader was in cabinet, they cut the library's budget by £700,000. They cut opening hours in many libraries to just 20 hours per week or fewer. And we are now working on a new strategy, of course, for our libraries. And in the new year, we will be asking for your views. A task and finish group has been looking at this. But this is not about reducing the service you get. It's about how we improve and how we modernise it with the parameters we have. So I hope that everyone who signed a petition will take part in this engagement when it launches in the new year. Because the simple truth is this administration, protecting funding and working hard to make sure that the library service that Labour repeatedly cut will get better in the years to come. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Tom Blenkinsop to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Unlike the previous two speakers, I will not speak about my own experience with libraries because I think this is bigger than any one of us, though I do thank both for their moving contributions about what libraries meant to them. And I also welcome the Green and Liberal Democrats administration, their commitment to keeping the library budget as is. It is a real terms cut, but it's a good sign that they have committed to that so far. But what you have repeatedly conspicuously failed to do is rule out library closures. You have made a nice big song and dance about how we're cynical, about how this is a political issue. And it strikes me that a really good way to resolve that would be to say, we're not going to close any libraries. You could say, we're not going to close any libraries, we're going to move some around. We could talk about leasehold costs in certain areas. We could talk about how we're going to make it more efficient. But we could say that no communities are going to lose out on library access. No ward that has a library will lose access to that library. There are various ways of putting this and probably more eloquent ways than I've just said. But the problem is you haven't done that. You have not even tried to do that. You've had opportunities with the amendment that came to the Public Health and Communities Committee, which could have resolved this. You voted against this because you wanted the Library Strategy Task and Finish Group not to make prejudgments. You've said it wasn't going to be about cuts, that wasn't the point of the library strategy, but you still weren't going to say we're not closing libraries. So we've been going on for this for months. We've had a lot of words, a lot of ideas, some of which are actually quite good. I think the Task and Finish Group was productive. I welcome everyone's contributions to it. I think people were trying their best there. And I would echo Ed's comments on people and on our constituents engaging with it. I think it would be really valuable. But you haven't said that you won't close libraries. And after last year's budget, in our financial difficulties, people, our residents need that reassurance. Councillor Williams has spoken about Avonmouth Library, referencing its low numbers when compared to Henleaze. These were, at the very least, hints of how the budget could deliver savings. My residents would not expect me to just take him at his word or anyone's word that he's changed his mind and moved on. They want firm commitments. When there are a lot of words about all the good things that we're doing and yet conspicuously fail to address this, when you become quite aggressive at the mere sentiment, when you accuse everyone of being cynical, and at no point you say you aren't going to do the thing, which has a number of people quite rightfully upset and concerned, people will worry that you are going to do just that and close libraries. I am imploring you to say otherwise. Rule it out. Do the right thing. Commit that no ward will lose a library. Commit to keeping them open.
20 seconds, Councillor.
But I'm sorry to say that I don't think you will. If you want an end to speculation, it is wholly within your power. Do the right thing and commit to keeping them open.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Stephen Williams to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, Councillor Reynolds, had a bad few weeks at the office, so I'm going to be nice to him for at least the next 15 seconds. We've been friends for quite a while.
That's very good.
We are Facebook friends, I think, going right back to the EU referendum in 2016. That means he gets to see my heritage tourism to places such as Caerphilly Castle. I get to see his political tourism to places like the Caerphilly by-election, and I commended him in person for going to that. That was the worst result Labour has suffered in the South Wales Valleys, where I'm from, in 100 years. What was the #1 local issue in the Caerphilly by-election, I wonder? Well, it was the proposed closure of libraries by the Labour-controlled council in Caerphilly. You would have thought, this is where the nicest ends, you would have thought that Tom would have been chastened by that experience he must have had in the terraces of Caerphilly and nearby, instead of which he's had the brass neck to bring a motion to us, a petition to us that is full of falsehoods and scaremongering. He painted quite a rosy picture of the Labour record in office when he was part of Mayor Rees's administration. Let's just remind us of what that record was. Mayor Rees proposed to close and move our central library. It was only an outcry during the by-election that Patrick and I fought against each other that stopped that. He had proposals to close 17 libraries in our city. They were only dropped after a public outcry, but instead of which there was a 25% cut to the library's budget. There's a political word or phrase for that. It's called stealth cuts, and that was something the last administration did. Moreover, worse, they worsened that by putting in place a recruitment freeze. That's why when all of us got elected, or I certainly saw this for the first time in May last year, we were getting those daily emails saying, your branch library, I'm afraid, is closed today because there are no staff available. So on day one, when the Liberal Democrat Green administration took place and I met senior officers, I said that plan to close the Central Library is now dead and buried. We're going to get rid of the recruitment freeze. You can fill the vacancies. There were over 30 at the time. Those emails have now stopped. That leaves the budget. Last year, we decided between us, Greens and Liberal Democrats, we would not cut the library's budget. This year, we have made, I think this is probably unprecedented, an announcement so far out that next year's library's budget, 26-27, is also safeguarded. That allows for the space for the task and finish
20 seconds,
strategy
Councillor.
next year to come up with proposals for safeguarding our libraries. Lord Mayor, under Labour, libraries were under threat unloved and underappreciated. Under the Liberal Democrats and Green administration, they're appreciated, they are valued, and they have a safe and secure future.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like to call on Councillor Mark Weston to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. My apologies to colleagues. I feel I need to dust off my Protect the Library speech for possibly the 8th or 9th time in this chamber. It seems to be the hot political football. Libraries are important, I think, to so many of us. We all have our stories. Mine was the way I bonded with my dad after the divorce. We didn't get on with many things at all. I remember that monthly meet-up, that awkward exchange of, hi, Dad, okay, here. And I said, oh, do anything good? And I said, well, actually, I just finished Raymond Feist's Silverthorn. And he went, well, why did you start the series at the second book? There are more. And that prompted the next 20 years of me getting out each one of the progressively worse 30 books that he wrote in that series. And it's how we connected. So for me, they are very, very special. I think everyone will have their own story on this. The bit that I'm getting a bit annoyed about on this is I'm not aware there was actually a threat to close libraries. And I say this with gritted teeth, because I disagree with the Green administration on the vast majority of things. You'd be surprised if I agreed. I think you would all, be very shocked at that. But on this one, we might actually, yeah, Ed and I, best friends. To both of you. But so this does come a bit hypocritical, forgive me for saying this, when the only threats to close libraries in the last 10 years have come from Labour administrations. And just to point out, in 2017, Avonmouth Library was on the chopping block, so was Shirehampton and Sea Mills, Redland, Clifton, Westbury, St Paul's, Hallfield, Lockleys, Hillfield, St George, Bishopsworth, Marks Road, Philwood, Whitchurch, Stockwood and Wick Road. They were all up for closure. And then you tried again in 2022, although sensibly that time you didn't specify which libraries you were going to close. You just sort of kept it sort of amorphous lump, which I suppose is myself talking now. But it seems very strange. The only post I can see of this petition is you needed leaflet fodder and a data gathering exercise that you can gather those emails in and then mark it to them. Now, I respect that, I'm an evil, horrific politician, but at least be honest, that's why you did it. And it is. The libraries aren't under threat, and anyone that thinks they are is being taken in by propaganda as they seek to mine their private information. Now, I'm sorry, if you want to secure libraries, keep them away from the Labour Party. Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you. The petition will now be referred to the leader or relevant policy chair for a formal response, and that concludes agenda item number 8. Agenda item number 9, the annual report of local government and social care ombudsman decisions. And this report is for noting, and I move the report. I'd like to call on Councillor Ellie Freeman to speak on behalf of the Green Group. I believe it's your maiden speech.
It is, Lord Mayor, thank you. Most scintillating topic for my maiden speech. The cases described in this paper often involve vulnerable people and complex situations. There were almost 200 complaints escalated to the Ombudsman, of which 46 were investigated, out of a total of 9,500 the Council dealt with over the same period, April 2024 to March 25. We looked at this data in Audit Committee in July and noted that Bristol City Council is not especially out of the ordinary with other local authorities in terms of complaints. We now have 2 additional staff in place, although it's too early to say what the impact is on the complaints process overall. The main areas for these complaints are education, adult social care, housing and bins. Upheld complaints in relation to education, health and care plans are high, and more staff have been recruited, which is already making a difference. While more plans are being issued, the average waiting time has reduced from 52 weeks in May last year to 42 this year. I welcome this, especially as someone who had to wait a whole year for my son's EHCP to be finalised a few years ago. The impact on children not having the proper provision in place is huge, and the Every Pair Tells a Story demo that I took part yesterday showed that deeply. We need to keep pushing for more support in this area and more certainty for the SEND sector, particularly from central government. The cases relating to housing and homelessness are very concerning too, and my heart goes out to everyone affected. There are some improvements in this area as well. Although the number of people at risk of homelessness has gone up, there is a big focus on prevention and moving people into more suitable accommodation. There's work being done on building more housing and setting up a council-owned housing provider, and the Homeless Move On team has been named finalist in the prestigious Social Worker of the Year Awards 2025. All this work should mean that in the future we see far fewer cases like the ones in this report. We've also seen adult social care has been rated good by the CQC, and the committee overseeing this has been working hard to make further improvements, and we really applaud the work happening there. Ongoing work with Bristol Waste is also seeing improvements, and I've been assured the issues raised in this report have been resolved, apologies made and lessons learned. However, we cannot get complacent. Everyone here knows we need to admit it when we get things wrong, say sorry and do our best to put it right. Processes don't always work, people do make mistakes, and the impacts should not be underestimated. Overall, the message of this report is that we need to keep learning, keep improving, and keep the welfare of our residents at the heart of all that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman, and congratulations on your maiden speech. I'd like to call on Councillor Tim Rippington to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. The Ombudsman's report is an important one, as it gives us a window into the issues that our residents are facing and the hurdles that they sometimes have to overcome in order to get the services that they are entitled to. I'm concerned that a number of cases upheld was up on last year and that many of the issues sound very similar. Once again, SEND is the main area of concern. Adult social care issues have fallen, which is good news, but as someone who has recently had a complaint upheld by the Council regarding the way they have failed to act properly when providing adult social care to my son, I know that there are still issues that need to be looked at, and I have every sympathy with some of these complainants. I have a particular concern with the way in which private care providers are monitored by the Council, and I'm not happy to see that the Ombudsman has decided not to investigate one issue raised against a private care provider because they have taken the Council's word for it that remedial action has been taken. We need to be doing more to ensure that we know how well our private care providers are meeting their contractual obligations. In many of these cases, the Council has offered financial redress, but I'm pretty sure that these residents would much prefer to have their cases dealt with properly and in good time than receive a few £100s in compensation. The distress caused by these complaints, by the time that they are taken to the Ombudsman, can be severe, and money is likely to be scant compensation. Perhaps the most worrying of all is the number and detail of the complaints upheld regarding homelessness and temporary accommodation. I'll just highlight a few for you. Tucked away on page 36 is one complaint that I find extremely concerning because the Council's response is to develop a policy or guidance for staff setting out the correct way interim or temporary accommodation should be ended. I would have thought that this is something that we should already have had in place, so that's troubling to learn that we don't. Hopefully that's being worked on now. Here's another concern. Did not provide emergency accommodation when requested. Had to stay outside during freezing temperatures. This was caused by human error. Apologised to Mr X in line with our guidance on making an effective apology. Paid a financial remedy. Paid Mr X £500 in recognition of the distress and physical discomfort caused. I'm sure everybody will appreciate that, you know, sleeping outside for 3 nights is not worth £500. I'll sum up now, but I would urge members who haven't done so to take a look at this report and familiarise themselves with some of the issues here. I believe last year I said that we need to do better, but I'm afraid it looks like we haven't at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Nicholas Coombs to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So I often wonder in meetings, why am I here? And I don't mean philosophically. I'm not one of those successful politicians with an Oxbridge PPE. So I mean specifically, why am I at this meeting and what am I supposed to do with this paper? So the Ombudsman's report is presented for noting. So what do we note from that? So the Council's levels of upheld complaints are similar to last year and average for our type of council. So well done-ish. Our reported failings resulted in lost education, temporary homelessness, discomfort and inconvenience, which is bad but not catastrophic, fortunately. We tend to settle complaints by delivering the service in the end and paying compensation for the delay. By my maths, it's about £30,000 we've paid in compensation over the last year. But given that the council spent £200,000 correcting a typo on the tax bills recently, a bit of compensation might be seen as the cost of doing business. Indeed, we've just recruited, as Councillor Freeman says, 2 extra people to the complaints team. Now, that's not enough for me. I think that our role is to question rather than to note this state of affairs. And for many people, it feels like the state is barely functioning. So average performance across similar councils in these circumstances, that's not an aspiration. Our staff don't want to be dealing with complaints. They want to be delivering excellent services. So the questions that we should ask are what needs to change and how do we make it happen? For this report, for example, some proofreading might have eliminated the 92 blank pages that were within the PDF, as well as fixing the discrepancy between the 36 cases that BCC lists and the 38 that the Ombudsman reports. More substantively, I suggest challenging directors on these complaints in our policy committees, not in this meeting when we're all together, but individually where we've got the opportunity to look at individual problems and ask what are our directors doing to avoid future failings. So we can't eliminate every error, but we can learn from past mistakes. So to answer my question, what we're doing here is trying to make things better. And this report is the evidence that we can act upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like to call on Councillor Mark Weston to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
I know, colleagues, you're excited. Me twice in a row. I'm with you, Councillor Coombs. You sort of get this report and you're like, well, now what? Because actually it doesn't really offer any real solution. You've got the evidence that stuff's messed up, and then it doesn't really talk about how you go around it. And also, I find certain elements of the report are written in a way to make us think they are less bad than they actually are. So it says 196 cases were investigated by the Ombudsman. Actually, hang on a minute. 70 of those, they looked at and went, actually, that's not for us. So they were just knocked straight back. It was either they hadn't gone through the complaints process. So really, they didn't investigate them. So the percentage isn't 11% that got a problem. It's actually the 126 cases that did go to them then investigated, of which 29% of them, they found that the council had messed up. We've written the report in a way to make us look better than we actually are. It also ignores the role of things like when we go to tribunals, when we're taken to court. It doesn't cover the whole wealth of complaints and everything else we see and we get. It's just a snapshot of one specific part of the complaint process. And that has me slightly concerned on this one, because it again, to me, when I'm reading it, it looks like a failure to get upstream of the problem. If you take housing, here we say that there's an increasing number of complaints going to housing. Now, I bet you, and I think the Housing Committee may want to look into this, the driver for that uptick is a failure of communication by officers because they're overloaded. I'm not blaming the officers for it. They cover large areas. They have an awful lot of tenants and everything else to deal with. They're big patches if you compare them to some affordable housing providers. But I know from where my mailbag, people lodge a complaint if they're not getting a response, because it's the only way to get a response. Now, our solution isn't to get more housing officers, it's to get more complaints officers. If we want to get ahead of the problem, get more housing officers. Make the patches smaller so that our housing officers can respond better to residents. They are very heavily worked. I'm not having a go at them at all. In my patch earlier in the year, in January, there should have been 8 housing officers in the north fringe of the city. There were 1.5. That was the level of illness or vacancy. If we want to get ahead of the problem, we need to take this report, look at what's driving the complaints, what's driving them in with our internal processes, driving them to tribunals, and then driving them to the Ombudsman. It all needs to be holistic. This report is only the first step we need to take. So yes, absolutely, the committees need to look at it. We need to drill into that complaint data and don't just look at how we respond to the complaints. Look at how we stop the complaints arising in the first place.
15 seconds left, Councillor.
I'm finishing, my Lord Mayor. Thank you very much. But let's get ahead of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I believe the Leader of the Council would just like to add something.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've just listened with interest, particularly to the last two speakers, and I think there's a very valid point being made there. So I think what we do need to do is take account of that and come back with a response from the administration about how we are going to improve and address the concerns that have been made and raised, because I think otherwise this does just become a piece of paper that we talk about and then forget about. So that's my commitment, and I've just cleared up the Chief Executive as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. That concludes agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 10, changes to the Council Constitution. I'd like to move this report and call on Councillor Guy Pontney to second the report as Chair of the Committee Model Review Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for to the Chamber, I suppose, for the indulgence of letting me say a few words on this. The former chair of the Committee Model Review Group. I just want to take a moment just to thank the members of the Committee Model Review, Richard, Andrew, Kaz, Kai, Heather, Rob and Lisa, and of course I have to mention our persistent public forum contributors, Suzanne, Ian and Dan. In 2022, Bristol voted to abolish the mayoral system, voting largely, we think, for a council that was more transparent and more accountable and listened to local communities more. This document, these changes represent the first somewhat timid steps towards that vision. It's fair to say that a lot of the issues raised at the Committee Model Review didn't actually require constitutional amendment. We could just action them at the time. And thanks to Tim, Lucy and Taylor for their help in just making things happen as we went along. Where there's a lack of ambition here, well, responsibility for that has to sit with me as chair. I also wanted to mention that hours before the final meeting of the Committee Model Review, we learnt that in spite of the referendum, Bristol was to have a leader and cabinet model foisted on it, imposed on it, in spite of the will of the public vote. But as we move towards that new system, or that old system for some of us, I really urge the Council to continue with that ambition, to be more transparent, more accountable, and to listen to local communities more. Thanks.
Thank you. We move to the vote. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure that you are in your allocated seats so your vote is recorded accurately. You are voting on a recommendation and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Please vote now. Right, the 43 votes for, 0 against and 17 abstentions, so that recommendation is passed. Thank you. That concludes agenda item number 10. Agenda item number 11, the Treasury Management Outturn Report 2024 to 2025. This report is for noting and I will move the report. I'd like to call on Councillor Patrick McAllister to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to welcome the Treasury Management Annual Report for the 24-25 financial year on behalf of the Green Group. I'd like to thank the officers who've worked on this, particularly in the audit team, as well as members of the audit committee. I'm sure we'll be hearing from Councillor Logan in a moment to help oversee the Council's diverse portfolio. As we all know, local government is operating in exceptionally challenging circumstances, and the continued underfunding of councils up and down the country is causing enormous difficulty. So it's extremely encouraging that this report can strike such a positive tone about the Council's compliance with regulations. Carefully managed investments and borrowing are essential to ensure the financial stability and short-term liquidity of the Council, as well as fund the infrastructure investments our city desperately needs. The report confirms that borrowings within our approved strategy and our number one priority for investments continues to be security. It's good to have that confirmation that all transactions are carried out within the rules as well, all reflecting this administration's commitment to taking the greatest care with Bristolians' money, an aim that I know is shared cross-party. The scale of capital expenditure this programme supports is very significant. In the last financial year, it came to nearly £300 million, including £140 million in capital expenditure on the housing revenue account, helping to provide the warm, safe and decent homes that Bristol's council tenants deserve. Over the next few years, the report details borrowing of nearly £1 billion to support the council's strategic priorities. While some might question the need or the wisdom of borrowing this amount of money, the scale of the challenges in infrastructure, housing, transformation that the city faces prove the necessity of safe and well-managed borrowing. While the debt performance indicators are a challenging area to evaluate, and that's been flagged in the report, and I again commend the work of the audit team, who I know will continue to take on the challenge of monitoring this area to ensure our good value for money and financial security. And moving forward, though, it would be good, I think, if the government could cut the rate of interest that local authorities must pay to the Public Works Loan Board. Councillors are effectively paying the government a profit on the loans we get back above the cost of the government providing the loans in the first place. If the government's serious about enabling investment in the UK's communities, cutting this level of interest gouging on local governments would be a good place to start. To sum up, I know that this is a technical report. It might not be easy reading to many members, but I would urge all members and members of the public for that matter, have a look at the final section which outlines the Council's compliance
20 seconds, Councillor.
Thank you, with regulatory requirements and good practice, confirming our capital spending is prudent, affordable and sustainable. Once again, this is testament to the hard work of officers and members, and we all owe them our thanks. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Rob Logan to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Colleagues, this report is more interesting than it looks. I wouldn't be surprised if colleagues would look at the Treasury Management Report and feel that it is a dry and technical document. It contains a lot of dry and technical material, necessarily so, and that information is accurate. It describes the council's loan positions, it describes how the council manages its short-term cash flow and its long-term debt. It shows how we manage liquidity. It does that accurately. The officers charged with doing that do that well. But there is a surprisingly political kick in this report. The report details how much we spend on our capital programme and how much we borrow to support that. The interesting figure is the council actually last year spent in capital finances 300 million less than it had expected to. 83 million of that is general fund. That's partly due to accounting arrangements, but it's mostly to do with delays in the delivery of capital programme. But the council spent the majority of that, more than 200 million less on council housing than it had expected to in terms of investment because of a political choice to not do that. And that's not a technical issue. That's not a dry and technical matter. That's a political choice. And every time we do that, there is a consequence for people who are looking for a home. It's an important and accurate document. We welcome it, we value it, and it tells an important story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Sarah Classic to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm not really sure how much more there is to say that my colleagues haven't already said. As has been pointed out, it's a very technical document. It tells a story, and it's good that in a lot of places it is surprisingly positive within, what is quite a tough and complex financial landscape. I want to reflect a little bit on how we might involve our approach to sort of borrowing and see where possible those opportunities come to us. And also, the report notes that the borrowing might be undertaken if deemed advantageous. It would be good if future sort of reports come to us actually set out some sort of strategy in ways that we could expand our borrowing in ways that does really impact the council. It's a very good, clear overview of Treasury activity, financial positioning. I do encourage, as I say, members to read the report, understand it, because it is really important. That's all I have to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor John Galandris to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. And members, for the avoidance of doubt, this is the speech that Councillor John unable to be with us today because he's unwell. So I haven't done a crash course in accountancy or treasury management, for the full disclosure.
Will it be Latin?
Borrowings... borrowings have increased by £105 million to £600 million. This looks like an eye-watering amount of debt. However, it is not completely off the scale for an organisation of this size, and there is headroom within the various financial covenants. Having said that, the Council's indebtedness would be at least £125 million lower if it were not for Bristol Energy and the Colston Hall. Meanwhile, the combined authority is debt-free and has surplus cash of £500 million. The government has borrowed this money by issuing gilts and handed it to WECA, who have then lent most of it to local authorities in the form of term deposits. A middleman in the City of London takes a cut in the form of a brokerage fee. This all seems crazy to me. Drawdowns have been made on a relatively short-term basis, which is a sensible approach, given the expected trajectory for interest rates. The report states that short-dated gilt yields will reflect expected movements in bank rate, whilst medium to long-dated yields are driven primarily by the inflation outlook. However, this overlooks the fact that the cost of government borrowing in the UK is higher than in other G7 countries due to the risk premium that is priced into UK government debt by investors. The PWLB loan rates that the Council will pay on future long-term borrowings will be impacted by this. At £99 million, PFI and service contracts remain a significant liability for the Council. This is in addition to the £600 million of term debt, but it is off-balance sheet finance. Yet again, there was considerable slippage in the delivery of the capital programme, which is massively out of alignment with the Treasury strategy. For Treasury investments, the Council prioritises security and liquidity over yield, and I agree with this approach. The return broadly aligns with benchmark sterling overnight index average rate. This is satisfactory. I'm reassured that the Council invests its surplus cash into high-quality, low-risk counterparties. The Council now operates in a highly challenging macroeconomic environment. Every key macroeconomic indicator has gone in the wrong direction since last year. Let's hope that the Chancellor's forthcoming budget doesn't make a bad situation even worse. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you, John. That was satisfactory. So that concludes agenda item number 11. Agenda item number 12, allocation of committee seats. Please note that recommendation 1 on this report will not be considered at this meeting. An extraordinary meeting to consider an updated report will be held on Thursday the 13th of November at 6 p.m. A notice of this meeting was published today. I would like to move the report and ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to second the report.
Seconded, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you. The recommendations are shown on the screen and are on the report in your agenda pack. As a reminder, we're voting on recommendations 2, 3 and 4. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The recommendation is approved, and that concludes agenda item number 12. There will now be an adjournment for 20 minutes. Refreshments for councillors are in the rooms along the corridor, and the conference hall is also available. So if you want to sort of arrive back here sort of 7:45, that'd be brilliant. Thank you, Mark.
Who needs a microphone with Mark around?
Past 7:45, so we'll continue with the rest of the agenda. So we move on to agenda item number 13, which is the Golden Motion by the Liberal Democrats for fairer funding for council tax exemption. The motion will be shown on the screens in the room during the proposing speech. I'd like to ask Councillor Andrew Brown of the Liberal Democrats to move the motion.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Members will be pleased to hear that I don't intend to use the full time allotted to me this evening. Those of you who were around in 2021 to 24 term will, I'm sure, recall that every year when we debated the council tax base, I made a point of raising the lost income that we, as a council, incur each year as a result of the student exemption. Nowadays, colleagues of mine make that speech on behalf of my group. So I've had to resort to proposing this motion instead so that I can make the points that I would historically have made at that time. But joking aside, this is a simple and straightforward motion seeking to address a glaring injustice at the heart of the funding of local government. Now, I need to be clear. We are not about bashing, it's not about bashing students. It's about an argument for natural justice. Since we are required to exempt students from council tax by national government policy, this should be fully recognised in the funding that we and other authorities that have a high concentration of students receive from central government. That is only fair. Now, it's been 12 years since the issue was last addressed in the settlements, and since that time, the value of the exemptions here in Bristol has increased from circa 9 million, to circa 23 million. An increase of around about £14 million. That would go a long way to plugging the gap, the funding gap that the council has identified for next year. So the reason I'm bringing this motion now specifically is because the new government has a golden opportunity to address the issue. Through its fairer funding to review of local government's finance, they can look at this again and ensure that cities like ours get a fair settlement that reflects the challenges that we face as a result of the student exemption. It's an opportunity for all of us in this chamber, I hope, to send a message to the government to ask them to follow through on their commitments to fairness in all its senses. So the motion has just two brief calls. One is for the leader, who's obviously also chair of our Strategy and Resources Committee, to further this call in directly addressing it and taking up with the Secretary of State. And the other is to join with its counterparts in our other core
20 seconds, Councillor.
And to work with the LGA and others to lobby the government on this issue. Now, I did say I wasn't going to use up all my time, and I haven't, although I've used more of it than I expected. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. You had 8 seconds to spare. I'd like to call on Councillor Caroline Gooch to second the motion.
I've got a bit of a technical failure and I've lost my speech, so I'm trying to
find. Should we just pause the time?
So I'm going to have to... I should stick with paper, it's better. Okay. Okay. So local authorities who host universities are really important to the higher education system, yet they're systematically underfunded for the unique challenges they face. It's time the UK government, it's time the UK government significantly increased the allowances for vital university towns and cities. We know the benefits that universities bring, innovation, cultural vibrancy, and a boost to the local economy, but we often overlook the costs. Firstly, there's the strain on infrastructure, Large numbers of students puts pressure on housing, public transport, waste disposal and public services, and all of this without adequate financial compensation. The current funding model doesn't reflect the size of the current student population and the almost doubling of the student exempt housing or exempt properties over the last decade. The financial contribution from the government should be seen as an investment in the national economy. Universities are economic engines, and by ensuring the host communities that they are sited in are stable, well-maintained and capable of supporting high quality of life, we make universities more attractive to both domestic and international talent. This in turn boosts our global competitiveness and research output. Increasing the allowance isn't a handout, it's an acknowledgement of the specific a tangible burden and strategic investment in the infrastructure that drives our knowledge economy. A thriving university benefits everybody, but only if the host town or city isn't struggling to keep the lights on. The government needs to step up. A dedicated increased allowance will ensure that towns and cities that host universities can manage the pressures and maintain vital services and foster a positive environment for both long-term residents and students and staff. It's a matter of fairness, sustainability, and it's in the national interest. And I'd just like to point out as well that the current government are proposing to increase the highest band of council tax, but there is a question mark as to whether or not the money from that council tax will go into local authorities' purses. And I would urge the party sitting next to me to please ensure that local authorities do receive the band,
20 seconds
high
left.
band. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now hear from speakers on the motion. I'd like to call on Councillor Guy Poultney to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The motion is right in principle, and the government's failure to update the funding formula is indefensible. Cities like Bristol are losing millions a year in council tax, and it's right that we call for that injustice to be corrected. However, it does not go nearly far enough. Yes, the government funding has been frozen. The whole fundamental relationship between universities, cities, and students is fundamentally unbalanced. And to frame this as a clash between students and other residents, it's to miss the point. The students are paying obscene rents for badly converted, cramped rooms. Communities are left to deal with the consequences, but the people who benefit from this arrangement are making millions. The benefits of Bristol's huge and growing student population are largely enjoyed privately. The costs are borne overwhelmingly publicly. The universities take in around £750 million a year in tuition fees and education grants. Landlords, assuming that students are paying average student rents, are taking in about £500 million per year in rent in largely passive income. And the city, which provides the waste collection, the transport, the community facilities, receives none of that. In 2011, Bristol had 32,000 students. Today, that figure is over 71,000. That's an increase of more than 40,000. In other words, the increase in the number of students is almost double the number of people on the housing waiting list now. In Cottam alone, there are over 1,000 HMOs. The majority of my residents are renting. If we built the equivalent purpose-built student accommodation based on square footage, the community infrastructure levy would total over £3 million just in that ward. Money that could have gone into schools, parks, transport. Instead, that value disappears into the private rental market. The strain on local infrastructure is obvious. Streets where half the houses on a standard frontage might have 4 food caddies, 4 wheelie bins, 4 blue bags and 8 recycling boxes. So the pavements simply become impassable on collection day, and a missed collection is a catastrophe. The same frontage, by the way, could be entitled to up to 9 parking permits, depending. It's not fair on residents, it's not fair on students. It's not unreasonable to spend evenings talking in your garden. It's not unreasonable to have a party for someone's birthday. It is unreasonable for the neighbourhood when there are a dozen lively conversations happening outdoors at midnight, and when every single night is someone's birthday.
This isn't sustainable. Our local bus service has been reduced to almost nothing.
20 seconds left.
Our primary school has shrunk from 3-form entry of 90 pupils to barely over 30. The local sports centre was barely saved from closure. Shops are struggling. So yes, let's demand that government update the formula and reimburse councils for lost income. But let's be brave enough to say the problem goes deeper and start talking about the real issues in housing and start talking about taxing investor landlords more.
Thank you, Councillor
Poultney.
Poultney.
We're proud of our
Time's up
students.
now.
But we need a sustainable balance, so we'll support the motion, but we need to start building a model where the wealth generated in Bristol serves Bristol.
Poultney. I'd like to call on Councillor Casself to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Brown, for bringing this motion. I'll just start by saying that Councillor Gooch seems to know more than me about what Rachel Reeves may or may not do in the future. So if she's got some information, good on her. But students are an important part of this city. Students get a lot of flack from the council and even Green councillors by the sound of it. But people moaning about HMOs, purpose-built student accommodation, popping up everywhere, the lack of them paying council tax. But we must remember the importance of students to our city. Our universities are places where students can find independence, friendship and learning, hopefully leading to a fulfilling career. And Bristol's universities are some of the city's best assets. Most Bristolians will be aware of the increase in the student population, with new and converted accommodation blocks all over the city. Student accommodation has evolved with ensuite bathrooms, co-living space and on-site facilities being the norm. There's money to be made in students, as has been pointed out. High accommodation fees meaning young people from lower socio-economic backgrounds face disadvantages accessing university. The financial strain of higher education too often forces students to forgo pursuing their passions. With two of my own still at higher education, both in London, I know just how much it costs. Many parents subsidise their children to go through university, although for the poorest, this isn't always feasible. After 14 years of Tory government, which started with the Lib Dem coalition and Councillor Williams racking up tuition fees, the barriers to higher education for poor families are too high. That's why the decision of the Labour government to reintroduce maintenance grants is a significant step forwards to achieving fair education for all. Students spend money in our local economy, they sustain our local nightlife, restaurants, coffee shops and bars. They bring joy, wisdom and activism to the city. But like the rest of our citizens, they also create waste, use our waste services, use our highways and rely on our police force and take space in our public transport. Not to forget the end-of-year clutter left on our streets that they leave behind. I think this motion is an important one. It highlights the financial gap that councils have to make up because of our students.
20 seconds left, Councillor.
It's right we look at that, and we will be supporting the motion this evening.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Richard Eddy to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
My Lord Mayor, we all know by now that your third forename is brevity, of course. And I hope I can therefore gratify you and ensure we can go home just that bit early today. Being a fourth party speaker on a sensible, logical, fair motion means most of the good points have been made by other speakers, so there's little point in me going on other to say than the Tory group will be strongly backing this. I would make two brief points, though. One to Councillor Brown, being father of the house, now having the memory and possibly the charm of an elephant means I've got a good memory. And raising this issue goes back beyond 2021. I do recall your former colleague, Anthony Negus, making the same points in this chamber 8 years ago. So there is quite a bit of history there. Various members have made the point you make, and it's right that the government recognise that. Secondly, to Councillor Portney, I don't think anyone should be under the misconception this is any form of student bashing motion. Councillor Brown made that very clear in his speech, but also it's very clearly in the words of the motion, so members can vote for this in the confidence that actually it's about for Bristol, but for all Bristolians, including the visitors here for a time.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. Councillor Brown, would you like to respond as the mover?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say much. I mean, I think Councillor Pulteney has obviously got the memo in the, from the Green Party leadership and is very much following in the... Sorry? They got the memo from me. Well, there you have it. Councillor Pulteney is the power behind Sackpo Lansky's throne. Cass, thank you to you and your group for support. And Councillor Eddy, I will be sure to pass on your regards to Alderman Negus when I next see him. And I shall reserve the rest of my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to the vote. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure that you're sat in your allocated seats so your vote is recorded. You're voting on the motion and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Please vote now. So we have 59 for, 0 against and 1 abstention, so that motion has been passed.
Your mic's not on.
There we go. Sorry about that. Did you hear the vote or not? Yeah? Great. It was 59 for, 0 abstentions and 1 against. It was 59 for, 0 against and 1 abstention, so that motion was passed. So agenda item number 13 is Labour's Silver motion, Safe and More Inclusive Parks for Women and Girls. This motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposing speech. I'd like to call on Councillor Lisa Durston of the Labour Group to move the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And Councillor Brown, my speech actually is quite short, I think, but we'll see. We all know how important parks and green spaces are for our physical health, our mental health, our connection to nature and a sense of community. We also know that not everyone gets to enjoy them equally. In Filwood, for example, we've got some beautiful green spaces, but not all of them are truly accessible or welcoming to everyone. The Western Slopes is not at all easy to access, even if you've got mobility issues, especially if you've got mobility issues or use a wheelchair. And the Northern Slopes are beautiful, but a lot of women, myself included, often avoid walking through there alone in the daytime, let alone at night. Physical access is a really important part of how people in our city experience our parks and green spaces, but it's also about how included and welcome people feel. Research shows that women and girls visit parks less often and spend less time there than men, and in Bristol that's something I see and feel every day. We know that girls' participation in parks drops off sharply around the age of 11 or 12, often because the spaces and activities just don't feel designed for them. I've seen this with my own daughters and their friends, and it's a pattern we can change. This means recognising the different barriers that people face: disabled people, racially and ethnically minoritised communities, LGBTQ+ people, older and younger people can all experience public spaces differently. And let's not forget that boys also need safe, supported spaces to express themselves and take part in positive activities. If we design with inclusion built in and listen to the voice of lived experience from the start, we can create parks that work for everyone. I want to thank colleagues in the Liberal Democrat group for their amendment, suggesting that this work is taken into the work programme setting process, giving us a clear timeline to get going. That's a really constructive step, and I welcome it. This motion is about making Bristol's parks places where everyone can feel welcome and safe. It's about listening to those who don't currently use our parks and working with them to change that. I hope the Council will support this motion and work to make our parks safer, more inclusive and more equal for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Susan Collar to second the motion.
Is that better? Okay. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to second this motion because I believe our parks, our city's parks, are the heart of our neighbourhoods, places where families gather, children play and young people connect. But too many women and children and young people tell us they don't always feel safe there, especially after dark. Fear of harassment, poor lighting, isolated pathways can turn welcoming spaces into places of anxiety. When that happens, our parks lose their purpose as shared, inclusive spaces for everyone. Now, this isn't just an issue for women, but for everyone. Now the clocks have gone back, it gets dark at about 4:30. School children will often have to walk through parks that are dark to get home. This is really daunting for a lot of people. We shouldn't accept a situation where people avoid our parks and green spaces for half the year. We can't stop it getting dark, but we can ensure that when it does get dark, it feels safe. I understand when other members have asked for lighting in parks, the council has said no, citing lightings affect bats and other wildlife. These are valid environmental considerations, but surely safety for people should come first. And with thoughtful planning, we can protect wildlife while ensuring our residents can get home safely. When there is building being done, houses being built, there is always the opportunity to find environmental considerations. We should be able to do the same for our parks. But it goes much further than lighting. We can embed this into our built environment, practical measures such as improved sightlines, regular patrols, help and information points, and nearby transport links and active travel routes, and these can make a big difference. This is just a starting point for ideas based on some of the work West Yorkshire's done. If we move forward with this, I'm sure everyone will have their suggestions. We want the involvement of everyone and to incorporate women, young people and families directly in park design and feedback. Lived experiences and proper consultations are key to creating spaces that truly work for all. A park that feels safe for women, children and youth is a park that benefits everyone. I urge the Council to prioritise inclusive park initiatives in up-and-coming planning and budgeting discussions.
20 seconds left, Councillor.
There is a park up in, I can't remember where it is now. You've distracted me, Lord Mayor. Oh gosh, I forgot now. Anyway, there's a park. And it's called, and it's a very light park. It's light all day, all night. It's brilliant. It's amazing. Sheffield. It's in Sheffield.
Lovely. If we can wrap up,
please. This is
please.
not political, but it is something all our residents want. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Cara Levan to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I welcome this motion and the attention it brings to safety and accessibility of our parks and green spaces, and concur with what both the previous councillors have said about the intersectionality and other minority communities that also are often not well served by our parks. It's something that Green Party cares passionately about. Years of government austerity have left our parks budget severely depleted, however, and with no end in sight, councils like Bristol are often only able to carry out the bare minimum in maintenance. For anything beyond that, we rely heavily and are very grateful to our volunteer friends groups across the city. I've attended the Bristol Parks Forum, and I've seen these groups come together to share the challenges and the needs of their local parks. Their dedication and the detailed work that they do for the parks reflects a deep passion, both for our city's green spaces and for the people who use them. The Friends groups played a vital role in shaping Bristol's Parks and Green Spaces strategy, approved just last year in early 2024. The strategy includes no fewer than 12 references to women and girls, and it explicitly commits to consulting women and girls groups on any substantive changes to our parks. So it's great that this work has been done, and it will be great that we can continue to build on what actually is in the park strategy. This motion and the continuation will be a valuable contribution to next year's Public Health and Communities Work Programme. The capital and the revenue implications of the motion will mean it will have to be carefully considered. We know that interacting with nature reduces stress and it improves both physical and mental health. For many in our city, parks may be their only regular contact with nature, but nature itself is under threat. Nearly half of bird species declined between 2015 and 2020. House sparrow numbers have dropped by almost 60% since 1979, and song thrushes by 80%. One of the challenges this motion presents is balancing the safety of park users, especially women and girls, with the need to protect wildlife. And lighting, as you've just talked about, is a great example where we have to get the balance right between protecting wildlife and not having too little lighting that it makes people think parks are safe when they aren't, because there's obviously a whole host of measures, wraparound measures that are needed to make women, girls and other minorities feel safer in parks. I want to thank Councillor Durston for her ongoing commitment to the safety of women and girls, and I look forward to working with her on public health and communities on this next year.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Kirsty Tate to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Mic wasn't working. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very proud to support this motion because it brings together three of the things that matter deeply to me: community, climate and equality. In BS13, the Ignite Plan, a community-led survey created by local residents, showed just how strongly people value our green space for their well-being. But it also revealed deep concerns about safety. According to that survey, 68% of residents said that they do not feel safe in every area of their community, and 79% said they do not feel safe going out at all times. The time people felt least safe were after dark, and many specifically named parks like Wilmot Park, Wivywood Park and Hengrove Park as places they felt unsafe. These are powerful local voices telling us that safety in our green spaces is still a barrier to access, especially for women and girls. Citywide, the Bristol Quality of Life Survey in 2025 showed that only 24.9% of those least likely to visit parks and green spaces do so regularly, compared with a city average of 53%. And in the most deprived areas, satisfaction with park drops to 46%, compared with more than 70% citywide. And to that finding, 22% of women in Bristol have experienced harassment or unwanted sexual attention in the last year, and this needs to change. As someone newly appointed as the Vice Chair of the Environment and Sustainability Committee, I see how this motion ties deeply into other wider commitments: the Bristol's One City Climate Strategy and Ecological Emergency Plan. These commit us to be carbon neutral and climate resilient by 2030, to restore and protect nature and to ensure equal access to healthy green spaces across the city. When we make parks safe and more inclusive, we are also strengthening community resilience and helping deliver our climate and nature goals. A park that feels safe for everyone, that's well used, well loved and well looked after. This motion offers practical evidence-based steps, safer parks audits, better lighting and sightlines, visible staff, and more importantly, involving girls and women directly in park design and decision making. It's also about confidence and community, supporting walking groups, outdoor classes, local stewardship that brings more eyes on the park and makes our spaces feel alive
20
again.
seconds, Councillor.
So I want to thank my colleagues, and I support this motion for everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor Stephen Williams to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, we had some political knockabout earlier on another part of the remit of my committee on libraries, but this is an area where I really welcome the opportunity to have cross-party working, hopefully amongst all four parties on the committee. I'd really like to thank the Labour Group for bringing forward this important motion and for all the topics that are addressed within it. And I'd also like to thank them for accepting the constructive drafting change that I proposed to them, because while the motion quite rightly set out what all the problems were, we didn't really have a way of taking them forward. And now that you've accepted that drafting amendment, we do, by working together on the committee at our next policy workshop, which I think is going to be in December. I don't know exactly when it's going to be, that we can discuss that and how we can take it forward, whether it's a task and finish group, whether it's a working party of the committee, in order to take these important issues forward. And I'll discuss that with Emily as the Vice Chair and Fee as the Green Leader on the committee, and Beidou if he wishes as well. It's not going to be easy, as we've already identified in the speeches that issue Susan brought up and Cara brought up as well. The issue of lighting, which has actually been mentioned to me several times, there are conflicting opinions, not just on wildlife versus human use of the park, but also whether having parks lit all the time might actually encourage lots of bad human behaviour in parks as well, if they think it's a good place to turn up at night. So there are lots of issues we need to address on lighting. Sight lines are also important. I've been for 2 walkabouts around Castle Park in the centre of the city, which should be our showpiece park in the city. We're proposing to spend millions of pounds on capital investment on upgrading that park, because the last upgrade was in 1993 when the galleries are made. I actually feel unsafe in large parts of Castle Park, because many of the pathways are enclosed, aren't overlooked by anybody, and as trees have grown around them, it's actually become even worse. So sight lines are an important issue as well. Another reason, I know I've upset commercial dog walkers, and so I'm not sure I should say this, but another reason why people say they feel unsafe in parks is because of dogs, and dogs who are let off the lead. So there are lots of issues we will need to look at in order to make parks safer for the humans that
20
use
seconds,
them,
Councillor.
but also safe places for wildlife as well. So I look forward to working with you, Lisa and Emily and Fee and others on the committee, and thank you for bringing forward this motion, which I hope we'll all support.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Councillor John Galandris to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. This is my own speech, yes. As the Bible saying goes, there is much rejoicing in heaven when a sinner truly repents. And it's good to see that Labour have had a Damascene conversion on the road to the ballot box when it comes to protecting Bristol's parks and green spaces. Under the previous Labour mayoral administration, the budget for parks was repeatedly slashed, year after year after year. Indeed, such was the cavalier approach to our parks that the mayor adopted the bizarre view that parks should be self-funding, the alternative presumably being to close them and turn them into development opportunities for his corporate friends. Anyhow, Labour sinners, we welcome your repentance and your focus on parks. The biggest park in my ward is the Downs. And many women and families have told me they now feel unsafe using the Downs. Why is this? Regrettably, there's been a marked increase in antisocial behaviour in recent times, fly tipping, which is visually intrusive and intimidating to some, and above all, there's a reluctance to walk through the human excrement now regularly found on the Downs. From the many emails I've received on this subject, in the public's view, The simple fix is to ensure that there's better policing of our parks and green spaces. Speedy clean-up of fly tipping and litter. The public do want better lighting. I appreciate it's slightly controversial, but they do want better lighting and better sight lines. And I take it that there is obviously an environmental impact on that. And in the case of the Downs, the public, my residents, want removal of the vehicle dwelling encampment. The number of vehicle dwellers on the Downs has increased dramatically from just a handful pre-COVID to around 150 vehicles now. And it's making the Downs a no-go area for many residents, especially for women and families. In summary, parks and green spaces enhance the quality of life of residents and are especially valuable in urban areas. People need to feel confident that they can use parks without fear for their personal safety. We're pleased that Labour has recognised the importance which residents place on parks and green spaces, and that increased use will depend on taking action to ensure that all users feel safe in our parks and green spaces. The Conservative group will be voting for this motion, and I hope all members will do likewise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Durston, would you like to respond as mover of the motion?
Yeah, thanks everyone who've offered constructive comments this evening and focused on the actual issue. I think, John, I'm not sure I even heard you mention the word women and girls in your speech, but do correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you, Cara, for the offer of working on this.
A point of information, it's making the Downs a no-go area for many residents, especially for women and families.
I'll let you off that one. So this motion is really about designing in safety from the start, so that when the decisions are made around how we spend money in our parks, we're really getting the voice of lived experience about what they look like and what communities and different groups of people across our city need. We all have an opportunity tonight with this motion to really embed inclusivity in the design of our parks and green spaces for women and girls and for everyone in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. We move to the vote. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure you're in your allocated seats so that your vote is recorded accurately. You're voting on the motion and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Please vote now. And that vote is unanimous. Thank you. So that concludes the Silver motion and today's meeting. The next meeting of full council will be held on Tuesday the 9th of December. Thank you. Apart from the extraordinary full council next week.